We have a very good agenda today. I think the planning committee really is becoming the most important committee in the legislature, quite frankly. But anyway, that's just an aside. Legislator Ryan is making his way up here, but we have folks that have other meetings to get to here pretty quick. So we'll go ahead and get started, and he can join him when he gets here. So with that, are there any corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, the minutes are approved. So let's go right into planning. One, letter A. So we have two different ag district resolutions here. We talked about it a little bit last month, scheduling the public hearings. And so A, the first one is just for ag district number 4, which is the southeast corner of the county. And then B, which we'll talk about next, is for the entire county. So with that.
Great, thank you. Hello, everybody. Yeah, as you might remember, I presented these at the last meeting when we were authorizing the public hearing for the sake of time at today's meeting. So just to quickly review, the first resolution is to approve the renewal of Ag District 4. That's the southeast corner of the county. I hear it's the best corner.
Yeah, also known as God's country.
Cool, yes, but, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, so we received about half a dozen addition requests totaling 33 acres and 140 acres worth of removal requests for a net loss of about 100 acres. But this being an 8-year renewal of the district, we've seen a net gain over the past 8 years of 200 to 300 acres, I think it was, over the course of the last 8 years. So
even with this 100
coming out? With this 100 coming out, yep. So we prepared a report to the county's Ag and Farmland Protection Board, and they have forwarded on to the legislator for approval. Once it's approved here, after the public meeting or public hearing at July session, once approved, that'll go to New York State for certification. But the report basically says the state of agriculture in the southeast portion of the county is good, and it recommends renewal of district.
At the end of last meeting, I was approached by the media about asking how much land in the county is in an agriculture district, and so I asked Megan to look it up, and I was really amazed to see 40%, right, of the county is located, of the land mass of the county is actually located in an agricultural district. So I thought that was pretty impressive, quite frankly. So, questions, comments? If none, I'll take a motion. Mark? Second. All in favor? Aye. Nays? Abstentions? Motion's carried. Okay, so B, which is, so when the district is up itself, land can come in and land can go out. But every year, for the rest of the county, the district that isn't up, they can add land, just can't take it out. So.
Yep. So this year we actually only had one landowner for 2 properties totaling 7 acres requesting to be added to the district over in the town of Elbridge, just outside the village boundary. We've been working with this particular landowner on conservation easement options for his ag land. He's got a small farm, about 100, 120 acres or so. He grows some fantastic dahlias as well. So he's asking to add 2 parcels to the district to sort of add some of his adjacent lands that aren't already enrolled in the district to the property.
Questions?
The enrollment in and out, that time period of 8 years or 5 years, is that statute by the state?
Yes. Yep.
Does that work?
Yep. Each district needs to get renewed every 8 years. Yeah. So we usually do one every other year. We've got 4 districts. Yeah.
Usually, is this kind of like one person? You said you only had one.
We usually get some more. Usually a dozen or so, I would say. Some years there's a lot. Some there's a little.
Kind of like an ebb and flow?
This one's low, yeah.
Low.
Yeah.
Low.
Yeah, I can't really explain why it's low in particular this year. I mean, in some of the additions we're part of the Ag District 4 renewal, so anything in Ag District 4 would go in that report and not this one. And there were about a half dozen in there, so, yeah. But, yeah, it sort of ebbs and flows, yeah.
And again, it's every year for the rest of the county, so, yeah. All right, any other questions? If not, I'll take a motion.
Take motion.
Second.
Mark, second. All in favor? Aye. Nays, abstentions, motion's carried. Thank you. All right, C. Appointment.
Morning, everyone. I'm here with Troy Waffner, who is the county executive's appointment as the new county planning director. Many of you, I'm sure, know Troy from his years at the state fair. He was there for 13 years, and the last 9 or so as either assistant director or director. And during that time, he oversaw major redevelopment on that site. I think they spent about $200 million redeveloping a lot of it. They built an expo center, they changed they improved the entrance, they took down the grandstand, they changed the whole midway, and Troy was at the center of all that with the design, the planning, working with the engineers, which is great experience for what he's going into. I had the pleasure of working with Troy when he was over at the state fair. That was when we were building the amphitheater and into the first few years of operating it. We had a number of issues from the county's vantage point with parking, with traffic, and with scheduling, coordinating our schedules, our concert schedules with the fair. And it was such a pleasure to work with Troy. You were great. We didn't always get what we wanted, but the communication was always open and free-flowing. And when we couldn't get exactly what we wanted, Troy was there to suggest other ways of doing things, or, always there with a workaround, which is, all you can ask for, really. And that's going to work really well with his role as the director of planning, because we did the hard work in getting a really good comprehensive plan together that was adopted by this body, this legislative body, last year. And we don't want it to be just collecting dust on a shelf. We want it to be a living, breathing document that our towns and villages will feel very comfortable and excited to refer to and to lean on as they face the incredible growth that they're going to be facing in the next few years. We need to have a leader in planning who's going to help them, who's sort of going to shepherd them through that and help them to see how this plan can be very beneficial to their growth and to their planning and to their decision making. And I believe Troy is the person for that. Lastly, I want to point out, and we just talked about it, agriculture is, covers 40% of the land in this county. I don't think many of us knew that. But it also is a huge industry. It brings in over close to $400 million a year. And it's important to this community, not just for that, but also because of the character it provides, creates. And we don't want to lose that. We want to continue to protect our farmers, protect our farmlands. And we couldn't have someone better than Troy, because Troy has spent not only the state fair, which is, very agriculturally bent, but he spent years with the New York State Assembly with Bill McGee, who was chairman of the Agricultural Committee. And so Troy really understands the business of agriculture, the policies, the issues that it's facing. And that's important for the director of planning because, as we all know, planning is the department that staffs our Ag Council, that moves forward all of the Ag Council's initiatives, and that now is becoming very, very involved in the redevelopment of the regional market. And Troy's experience and his interest in that area, which is one of our main themes in our study, our redevelopment plan, is going to be very beneficial to our department. So with all that said, I'm going to turn it over to Troy so he can tell you more about his qualifications and himself and answer your questions.
Good morning. Thank you very much for the consideration. Thank you. As Mary Beth said, most recently, I worked at the State Fair for 13 years. Came in as assistant director, spent a number of years as acting director, finally became director. And in that time, the fair was coming out of a tough period. Not only were we focused on building attendance, marketing, and all that, but we were also focused on kind of the implementation of what was coming in a comprehensive rebuild of the state fairgrounds. It turned out to be about a $200 million investment from the governor. And that involved 375 acres of land, starting not carte blanche, but taking out a track which encompassed 63 acres, taking out a grandstand that was historic, working through all of those issues. And there was a lot of consensus building, because when you read the plan, you guys have a great plan. It's a consensus building now. I'm talking to the municipalities, and the planning department has done a great job with the leadership of Chairman Knapp and all of you, really making sure the planning department has what it needs. But it's going on building those coalitions, partnerships, working with the municipalities, making sure everybody knows the planning department is a resource for them to continue to be. A lot of that is what we did through the redevelopment of the fairgrounds. We worked with a lot of groups most of the groups in Onondaga County, and God knows everybody had an opinion on what we should do with the fair. But we worked our way through it. Just in terms of the fair itself, it had about 80 full-time annual staff, and during the fair, we'd actually staffed up to 1,500 of our own employees. And it came with everything. Every year we'd build the city out there, which at times would rival the population of the city of Syracuse. But it had hospitals, EMS, fire departments, police departments, parkland, commercial districts, ag districts, all of that. And ag was our mission at the fair at the end of the day, even though we talked about carnivals and food and concerts. It was really the cows that mattered at the end of the day. Prior to that, I worked for the state legislature. Most of those years were spent in the state assembly working for the chairman of the ag committee itself, and we did everything from massively tweak an incremental basis as the agricultural districts law to make sure more farmers qualified, things like horse boarding, things like Lyme to strengthen those protections, to marketing, to working with the Wine and Grape Foundation, the maple producers, all the commodity groups to really strengthen their position in agriculture and make sure they had the money to do what they need. I also spent time on I grew up in Madison County in Casanova. I spent time on the village board, which, Casanova at that time was going through its own issues of growth and how to grow properly and all of that. And I was, a lot of working on those types of issues with comprehensive plans and planners to really make sure Casanova was, grew, but kept its historic center, which is what it always wanted to do. So, I think I have the experience on a local level, county level, at the state level. And certainly at the fair, I worked with everybody. Anybody who called, I worked with them, and it's just how we function out there, and we function the same way at the county planning department. Any questions?
I'll start off real quick and then I'll open it up for questions. I've known Troy literally back to his days at Assemblyman McGee's office working on a lot of the agricultural type things. And as he mentioned, he made major changes to the laws that we just passed in A and B. All good changes, and then of course with Senator Valesky's office as well. Obviously, most folks know Troy from his days at the fair, which has to be probably, I haven't run the numbers, but probably the second largest fair festival type gathering in Central New York. The largest, of course, being the Lafayette Apple Festival.
We take second place.
Yeah. But no, that literally is a incredible undertaking. Somebody that knows, what goes into those things. A much smaller event, obviously, in Lafayette. But I don't know if you saw the Syracuse.com article, but when I was talking to Tim Knaus about this, I basically said, we're blessed. We have wonderful planners over in the planning department that know their stuff inside and out. They put together two really, really, really good plans: the Plan Onondaga and the Farmland Protection Plan, which passed the legislature unanimously. I think both of them. And so now we're in the implementation phase. We've got to be out there working with the towns and villages to implement the plan. And there's a lot going on. Right now we have a large delegation of business leaders from Taiwan in town touring the county, you know, these folks are looking at setting up shop here along with Micron. And so, yeah, we've got to be on top of it. We've got to be ahead of it. And I think Troy, when I heard that Troy was going to be the person, I enthusiastically said, I'll sponsor the nomination. So with that, did you?
Yes, I have a question. How are you, I have some concerns about NIMBYism in the county. So how are you planning on handling that?
About what?
NIMBYism?
You know, there's no perfect answer to that. I mean, it's a problem no matter where you go, no matter what issue it is, you all know, no matter what issue. I think the best you can do is meet with people on a regular basis, inform them. Yeah, at the end of the day, nobody likes change, you know what I mean? The only thing they like to change is their clothes. You know, above and beyond that, most people don't like change. It's making them comfortable with change. I mean, we went through the same thing at the fair. It's, you know, people who've gone to the fair did not want to see me tear down any stand at the fairgrounds. But, you know, I met with people, we met with people continuously, we do the same thing. You're not going to solve the problem, but it's getting them comfortable with what they view as the problem, making them realize it's not really, it's not that problem that they're worried about. I mean, it's just, and you know, it's really just getting people comfortable.
Okay, other questions? Mark?
I don't have any question. I just, you know, I have comments that I like the bottom-up approach that this plan has done. And being a village trustee and your comments about Casanova, Palmer and I were just talking, I agree with the NIMBYism, but the county has a role to help support and work this bottom-up approach of working with municipalities to do better, to do opening new comprehensive plans, new housing initiatives, so that we can take care of that. You're coming in, I mean, think about Plan Onondaga, housing study, Micron, Route 81. This is an exciting time for our county. This is an important time for our county. We need to make sure we have the right people. I go back to the Good to Great book, having the right people on the bus in the right seats. I'm excited to have you in the seat and on the bus. My comment is I just want to don't lose that bottom-up approach, whereas the state makes the biggest mistake of this is what you're going to do, and the federal government, this is what you're going to do. I like the approach of what do you want, going back to how can we work together to continue to make everything move up and get people to realize you're not always going to, you know, we were talking about mayors. Mayors are not against NIMBYism, but they don't have the resources and the help. You know, I had a staff of 2 in my office that ran a $7 million budget, 35 employees, you know, fire, EMS. We just don't have the staff to do it, but the county does have staff and appropriately. That I just want to make sure we continue that collaborative efforts, and I think you're the right person for that.
The plan department also does a wonderful job supporting the towns and villages with the GIS program as well.
It's gonna be very important to keep.
Saves the towns and villages a lot of money from having to do that themselves.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah, no, certainly, definitely to Legislature Olson's point, coming in hot, I guess, if you will. Got a lot of work to do. We've got a plan in front of us, which is going to be great. Look forward to seeing how you're going to implement it. But of course, it's going to take for a long time. But we did talk about agriculture in secondary, because obviously plan on housing, blueways and greenways and water, all that is getting a lot of attention. But you know, also food scarcity is a big issue in this community, big issue. And you know, I just don't really understand why it has to be that way, and I think that we could completely do better. And I'm definitely looking forward to that conversation beyond the plan on about what we can do, how we can use, and not just like here in Syracuse, but also Central New York, how we can use our agriculture. What can we do to grow more, utilize our agriculture, and how that transcends into an economic development engine for our local. So we don't have to rely on other communities outside of Central New York, outside of our state, where we could be doing it. And that kind of you know, goes along with the whole regional market, what we're gonna be doing there. I think so there's a lot, and I'm excited about it, but you know, we have to, that's also an issue. We have far too many, it's not just an issue in the city, of Syracuse, that's an issue in everywhere else, up in Oswego County, all over, that people are going without food, and it doesn't have to be, and that's secondary to the agriculture. I know we do a lot of work, so we do a good job.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. The food scarcity is a big issue.
Yeah.
One thing we learned during the pandemic is that we have to be as self-sufficient as possible. You can't rely on things being trucked in from all over the country. or from other countries, food, especially in the food department.
And there certainly isn't enough time in the day to do everything that we're about to do.
Yeah.
But I mean, within your group, we have to, like, along with everything we're doing, we have to understand that and try to promote our agriculture as much as we can.
Other questions?
Just a comment. I'd like to say that this is yet another great appointment by our county executive. I think it's a wonderful fit. The experience from the previous planning director to your experience is different in a good way. You're going to come in and see it from a different view. And I think it's a wonderful view that you're going to have, especially with all the experience you've had at the fair. I'm a huge fair guy. 10 out of 12 days I go to the fair.
I apologize if you don't like the changes.
Well, I mean, but there were some changes that had to happen, but for the most part, I look back at how long I've been going and how much I've enjoyed it over the years, and my children have enjoyed it, and you were responsible for that. And there was that little city that comes together was you were responsible for that, and you did a great job there. And I'm confident that you'll do a great job here for the county. Best of luck to you.
Excellent. Mark?
I'll move the appointment.
Got a motion, got a second? Kevin, all in favor? Aye. Nays, abstentions, motion's carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Beth.
Okay, D is something we've been patiently but anxiously waiting for. And so let's hop into it. Please introduce your
Absolutely.
guest.
Hello again. I'd like to introduce Charles Buki. He's from CZB, our consulting firm. He's the head of CZB and leader of our consultant team working on housing Onondaga. So as we mentioned, we've been hard at work preparing the Onondaga County Housing Needs Assessment, which we refer to as Housing Onondaga. So this is a county-wide needs assessment to explore basically our past, present, and future state of housing supply and demand in the county. You may remember Plan Onondaga. One of the themes within that is housing and neighborhoods. So as a beginning step and something I've always wanted to do within the housing role is take a look at where we stand in the housing market countywide and sort of break that down. And how are we providing quality housing in neighborhoods? It's a very important component of housing Plan Onondaga. Sorry, too many Onondagas. Super important. Too many. Yeah. So we want to understand the dynamics of housing that are currently at play, how we can shape those programs and assistance from the county level, how we can assist municipalities. Obviously, municipalities play the most important stakeholder role in the housing market right now. County has the power of incentives and the power of education. That's the roles we're looking to play within this plan. The municipalities play the role in setting the very specific vision, setting aside land for development, setting aside policy, zoning regulations, land use planning, and all the rest, and they have home rule control. So this is very much in their hands, and we're absolutely looking at this as a way to partner with municipalities and moving, helping them understand what we've learned and share in identifying the solutions. So we basically have asked Charles and his team to take on 3 roles. We wanted to take a look at where we've been, so sort of as a thought exercise, putting Micron and everything aside, what does our housing condition look like? What are the markets? What's the need? What's the demand? What's the supply? Outside of that, what are our demographics doing? What's our economy doing? And how does that impact the supply and demand of housing? So that was the first step. Obviously, right now, we're in a really volatile time in the housing market with the national trends that are going on, inflation, interest rates, cost of supplies and materials, the pandemic. So this puts us in a really crazy time to be doing a housing plan. So we also asked them to fully digest and explore that issue as well. And then we obviously have Micron and all the supply chain, the catalytic drivers that are affecting growth here in the county, and all the ancillary development that's going to be coming off of that. So Yeah, we threw at them 3 different issues, 3 different problems to try and tackle all in one project. Thank you, Charles. Sorry about that. Yeah, so we also wanted to not just tackle it from a countywide perspective, but also wanted to get down to a municipal level. So municipalities could see themselves in this study. So sometimes when you take things at the county scale, you sort of lose that detail. So what we did in your plan, there's a blue section towards the back where it breaks down the county into different regions. So we look at the lake region, that's Skaneateles and Spafford, differently than we look at the Onondaga Shores region, that is Geddes and Liverpool and Salina. So we sort of did some analysis on all of those subregions, so folks in the municipalities could really dig down deeper into their actual conditions, which I think will be really helpful. In terms of engagement, we used the county's Development Advisory Committee, which was formed shortly after Micron was announced, to sort of be our guiding committee for this project, sort of fact checking. It's got development, it's got the real estate community, it's got economic development, housing agencies on that committee. So really being our reality check as we went through this project. So we've been engaging them throughout. We also, over the winter, did a listening tour, we called it, where we invited every single town and village board member, planning board member, and zoning board of appeals member throughout the county. So that's close to 500 members when you add them all up. We invited them to a listening tour, series of meetings. We went all the way around the county, virtual meetings, in person. We got great feedback from them because this plan is nothing if we don't understand the actual dynamics that are going on. And we heard a lot of great information within that engagement as well. We've also worked in tandem with some other concurrent initiatives. Obviously, the city of Syracuse is undergoing a very similar housing study using Charles and his team, the same consultant team. We did that intentionally. So they've got a really deep dive into the Syracuse market. The way our project is framed is we've already done that for the city of Syracuse. We want to understand the other dynamic as well in the towns and villages. So relying heavily on the analysis of the city project as we do ours. You may have also heard that Center State has its own housing task force. We've worked with the staff from that task force to sort of align our efforts. The Empire State Development is also doing a regional housing needs analysis endeavor, and we've been working with that team as well. So we see this all as complementary efforts to really paint a full picture of where we stand and how we can assist, because we do have some new challenges and opportunities on the horizon. So unless anybody has any questions now, I was going to turn it over to Charles for a quick presentation. We do have to get out of here because we are going to an 11 o'clock presentation to that development committee and village mayors and town supervisors. We've got a sort of marathon of meetings today to present the plan, so we've got to be there by 11. So that's all right. I'll turn it over to Charles. Sorry.
Good morning.
No pressure.
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry.
I was eavesdropping on the welcoming of the new planning directors. Congratulations. And I would just start before jumping into the slides to echo, I think, Mark, your comment earlier. It's an exciting time, and the good to great reference is an outstanding reference. I mean, the pieces are in place, right?
Yeah.
The pieces are in place, and it is an exciting time. So I want to just absolutely underscore that. Let me just do a check. It's a Achilles heel of mine, which is I get hives around media. Is there media here? I want to just know if we're on or off the record. What's that?
We're live streaming.
We are live streaming. Okay. Well, let me just be very clear. I did not discuss McMansions yesterday or 2 days ago in my discussion with Syracuse.com. I never said densely packed, and I never said there would never be any more picket fences. I want to be on the record as whatever was reported this morning is not anything I said. We have been at this for not quite a year. We've learned a lot. Prior to that, as Megan had said, we had the opportunity to do a year-long deep dive into the city of Syracuse market. So the two together have really helped us understand things. County executive, Mary Beth, Justin, Isabel, Megan, the staff at the county has been superb, helping us get the right data, assemble data, work on our maps, cross our T's, dot our I's. So I just want to make sure I acknowledge that. The presentation, I've got about 30 slides. I'll try to move through expeditiously. I promise to go as quickly as I can. Altitude-wise, I'll try to not get in the weeds. If there are questions during or afterwards that need to be in the weeds, I'll do my best. I'll try to keep it at accessible, like non-boring altitude. And just in terms of my lane, the lane, county executive really, as Megan implied, authorized me and my staff to try to understand what's going on now, much more so than to make projections into the future. So while we've got some ideas and thoughts about the future, the lane we're authorized to be in is really what's been going on and how's it feel now. So I just wanted to say that up front. Okay, so let's see if I can get this to work. As we looked at lots and lots of data, we had to figure out a way to tell a story. Because there's, you have 36 jurisdictions that can be sliced and diced and form, many different clusters. There's many ways you can organize things, by school district, by any number of ways. So we tried to figure out how to tell a story. So the structure really follows three ways. One is really what are the baselines and a bit on speculation. So where are you? How'd you get here? The second is Micron in context, right? So we tried really hard to do this independent of Micron. We tried a big part of the work was to really acknowledge 195,000 households, right? 500,000 people who are here now, right? Who are working now, commuting now, marrying and divorcing and having kids and selling and buying, or not selling and buying, as the case may be sometimes. Very important to understand, the weight of an existing 200,000 household, existing 500,000 people, and then ask the question, how does Micron fit into that? And then the third was, much as we tried otherwise, we could not find a way to tell as regards Syracuse. We really came to the conclusion that there's Syracuse market and everything else. You can blend things, you can average things out, but at the end of the day, there's Syracuse and there's everything else. And so we know a lot about Syracuse, and it allowed us it gave us a lot of liberation to really focus on everything else. In part, a reaction to push and pull, but also separate and independent. So that's the storyline structure. What we did, historical trends-wise, we really looked at 100 years up until now, at a high level, right? But really, we began to dial in, after 9/11, looked at 9/11, looked at the clawback out of 9/11, then looked at the 07, 08 period, the collapse after 08, the dig out after 08, and that's still historical. And then what we did really is, in the last 10 years, we looked at a lot more data points with a lot more frequency. So for the last 10 years, encompassing really the dig out after the financial crisis in 07, 08, 09, up through the beginning of COVID, during COVID, after COVID, and then to today at a quarterly basis. So that's looking at cost of funds, cost of land, arm's length transactions and all of that, list sale prices, duration, of time on market, the changes in time on market. We looked at it in a lot of different ways. So that, I think, positioned us to add up the historical view plus that sort of dense view of the last 10 years. And if you have questions on that, we can come to any of those specifics to let you know. We tried to do systems level work as much as we could, which is, as Megan had alluded, there are lots of different ways to organize the geography, organize the sub-markets. So this is an economic dive, a demographic dive, and then slicing and dicing in every which way. Towns with villages, towns without villages. These two towns without their villages, these two towns with all the villages. Then a different combination until we could see what kind of patterns arose in terms of land use, values, demand, and quite importantly, need. This is a good takeaway slide. I think this is slide 5. Yeah, it's a good takeaway slide here, which is that County's getting much older, right? So median age of 39, you know, and getting older it's an issue, okay? It's a real issue. Households are getting much smaller, right? So a lot more households of 1s and 2s, right? A lot fewer households of 3s, 4s, and 5s. Families are making fewer babies. They're making the babies they're making much later, right? As the county's getting older, right? People aren't dying as quickly as we need them to die. So what ends up happening is the market gets tighter and tighter and tighter, right? And so if you take that demographic piece, and you add that to the next piece, which is development is really expensive, right? I mean, the one thing that absolutely just jumps out of the data, right? Price of diesel, price of plywood, price of linear foot of board feet of lumber, price of labor, all of that. If you take all of that and then fold it into just the escalation of borrowing costs, right? Whether that's for the home builder, whether that's for the developer and the home builder, the buyer, pretty soon, you know, you are stacking cost upon cost upon cost until it becomes really tricky, right? If you take that and add it to, right, fewer folks moving out of their homes, right? Fewer folks putting their homes up for sale, right? This tight inventory and the expensive side on the new side, you have real issues, right? So consequently, you're tight. We think that's not permanent. We can talk about that. It is expensive. Regulations are an issue. We should talk about regulations being an issue, and consequently, affordability becomes a huge issue. Right. Question?
Oh, sure, go ahead.
So, just a question, but if you're saying inventory is tight, well, we all know that. Right?
Yeah.
But if you're saying that you don't think you think that's temporary.
Yeah.
But the cost.
Not as in going to end tomorrow. But,
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah. In perpetuity.
Yeah.
Right. But then if you're saying, but the new construction is very expensive.
Yeah.
So how does that jive? Like, so if you're saying, so inventory, the tight inventory is going to go on forever, which are in the short term.
Sure.
But at the same time, we're not.
I'm going to die soon. So, I mean, at some point, my house is going to come, you know, on the market.
So it's more like a 10-year thing.
Yes,
right?
that's correct.
Okay.
This is not a.
I didn't know temporary with temporary.
Yeah, it's not a permanent feature. That's all, right? The other piece too is new construction is probably not the way to dig out of all these issues. Like, redevelopment presents as much of an opportunity as new construction, just given new construction costs. It's just so gosh darn expensive to put anything in the ground. It's just is. So let's see. So summing that up, right? So you've got a demographic issue plus rising costs, certainly on the new side, but those two together make rising costs overall, right? And also rate of the rise is significant. Plus local government disposition, right? Which is the regulatory framework, speaks to the matter of implementing Plan Onondaga. What's the extent to which you have a complementary regulatory framework, right? Then sort of a long-term lag on the general softness makes for a market very much in transition. Right? And so all of that leads to what I think would be no surprise to anybody. Market feels tight because it is tight, right?
Mr. Chairman,
Sure,
may I ask a question? Can I ask a question?
please, yes.
Thank you. Can you go back to that slide for just a moment?
This one?
Yeah. Local government dispositions inclined to say no to certain types of housing development. You've studied that, you find that to be a problem?
I think that a challenge you're apt to have in the coming decades is going to be how rapidly your local jurisdictions are positioned to approve the projects that developers would conceive, right? The combination of land and the approvals process, and does that slow things down? And so in an aspiration to put units out there, how tight is that? Is it a choke point? It's something you're going to want to consider.
So when you say that there's a simple solution could be to free up residential housing, would be to approve apartment complexes, senior housing within said towns, and then that would free up residential housing. Some of those people would move out of their housing into the apartments.
You're exactly right. So fill in the blank jurisdiction has an opportunity to say yes to a certain number of multifamily or a certain number of senior rental, right? If it doesn't say yes to that, then seniors who are in their homes who are looking to move won't be able to move. They're stuck in place, and you've got that sort of, elephant in a python. It's just stuck, not moving through, right? And so you just don't have as much inventory as you need.
So it's fair to say a key piece to this plan is to get to local towns and villages, to make them understand that this is the best for the whole, this is the best for the county.
Yes.
To approve and loosen up on regulations.
With caveats, right? So you would want really high quality products.
Correct.
Right? Really just high quality products, right? That you can say yes to. I think that maybe a better way to phrase what we put there is the need for high quality products that jurisdictions can readily say yes to.
Understood.
And that's a function of our planning department and our new
That's right.
soon-to-be planning director.
Thank you.
So historically, again, this is all what you know, but I think it's important sort of as establishing a baseline, really from 50 to 70, you are both sprawling and growing, right? After 1970, your population is leveling off, right? And you are no longer growing, but you're still sprawling, right? So in 1950, your urbanized area was about 12 people per acre, right? Everything you added since 1950 is, I believe, 1.3 people per acre, right? And so the issue of the ag economy becomes something that you're probably going to want to be thinking about, right? This also sets the table when you have sprawl without growth for really the capacity to be competitive in the long run, right? So those are things to think about. As you go forward, again, to echo what Mark had said, it's an exciting time. And so while we did analyze everything without Micron, the fact of the matter is it's coming and it's going to be a catalytic driver of tomorrow, right? And so now what we think you have is this real opportunity, which is when you marry it, which is this important injection of demand, right, to Plan Onondaga, which is a superb state-of-the-art tool for directing demand, you're in a great position for growth and prosperity, right? So that's I think, a takeaway message. I understand we're limited on time, so I'll fly through these a little bit. You'll just notice on the left, okay, really you get to the late 1960s, you're peaking your population and it's holding steady, okay? So what that really, when we dig into who comprises those populations, decade over decade, without Micron, you're going to level off well before 2040, okay? So you're not going to continue to grow on your own, right? Without that driver, right? So it's in that context that you want to understand in-migration and out-migration, the net combined with household formation, right? And then try to have some sense of what would happen without it, what happens with it, right? If we go step back a little bit, you see here the trends cross over in the 60s, right? So really from 50 to 70, the entirety of the county is growing and sprawling, but really by 70, what ends up happening is you're no longer growing, but the county minus the city continues to grow, and it does so really by the out-migration from the city of Syracuse, as shown on the right. So that's all material you're well aware of. As we get into the historical factors, you can also see on the far left, really, for the last 20 years, the escalation of U.S. housing prices and the relative, until of late, the relative flatness of county housing prices, right? So that becomes really vital. On a subsequent slide, we'll come back to the value to income ratios, which tell another piece of the story, right? But you can also see in the middle chart, the hockey stick curve of sales prices going up. They're taking off, right? So you have to pay a premium right now to get into the buyer market. And so that puts extra pressure on what is already a disposition for more rental demand all by itself, right? So a very costly buyer market to enter, plus a disposition for rental together, puts a lot of pressure for more rental, okay? In the second chapter, we go through the position for the city of Syracuse in the context of the county. Here on the left is a typology that shows relative market strength. And so where you've got those those deep pink areas, those are very, very strong markets in the county. And as you get into mint and then light blue and dark blue, we really have struggling markets. Okay, and as shown on the right, what you end up seeing are two things. One, the county exclusive of the city consistently is much more valuable housing market than outside of Syracuse than Syracuse. But not only that, it's pulling away and has been pulling away for a long time. Okay? So despite the city having stopped the population hemorrhage, right, and despite that temporary bump from millennials, and I want to underscore temporary, that temporary population bump from millennials, all of which is good news, feeding into some stabilization in Syracuse. The rest of the county is really performing much stronger. And underscoring that, you can just see when we really take all of the households across the county and divide low, middle, and high income households, you see that the county exclusive of the city of Syracuse really has a tremendous share of middle and upper, whereas the city has the predominant share of lower middle and then lower, right? And then if we look at the subsidized disparities, you'll end up seeing the same thing, right? So we have two very different markets, very important to see them as such. When we step out of the city and focus now exclusively on the balance of the county, you can see historically from the 1990s through the 2000s and then the 2010s, slowly declining demand by buyers and increasing demand by renters, right? And that's national, it's regional, it's national, but you certainly have it here, okay? And your trades have done an outstanding job of responding to that, right? The year over year production numbers are really good, right? They're going to have to scale up. No question they're going to have to scale up, but you've got a very responsive trade sector. In terms of costs, I find the left chart to be very valuable. I know it may be a little weedy, but what I just want to show is an illustrative, factual but illustrative chart of where you've been. Okay, so just 4 years ago, if I were a developer, right, if I got land for free and I didn't build a garage, it's still going to cost me $300,000 to put the box in the ground. Okay, when I turn around to sell that buyer is looking at blended financing between 2.9 and 5.9, right, depending on how they finance their purchase, right? They're going to, just 4 years ago, they needed $100,000 to get in there, right? Today, the same house is $50,000 more to build. I still don't have a garage. I still got the land for free. I almost have twice the borrowing costs, right? So now I have $1,000 more in carrying costs, which means I need $135,000 to buy the same house, right? So the extent to which I now have to deliver a garage, I know I'm not going to get land for free, right? Interest rates have yet to come down. It's going to be really, it's a very, very tricky challenge on the new construction side, right? That also shows up on the rental side. So instead of the 2,000 square foot house, we sort of apply that to the moderate sized new 800 square foot apartment. And what ends up happening is just 4 years ago, you needed $55,000, $60,000 to be able to get into that new apartment. Now you need 90, right? These are break-even rents for the new owner who just purchased it from the developer, right? So it is indeed, these pressures really are very, very much present, okay? A lot of these pressures also get accentuated by the fact that we have fewer and fewer owner households, right? And more existing households who own have seasoned mortgages, have been in their homes a long time, and aren't leaving quite so soon, right? Why? Because the next product that they would want to have is not yet available, right? So this simply reiterates that you're growing in one-person and two-person households, and there are fewer and fewer three-person households. The takeaway here, right, is that even though if we go back way over to here, you can see these bars on the left relatively flat, at 475, 485, 495, right? That doesn't mean those 500,000 folks in those 200,000 households aren't divorcing and marrying and having their nephew come and stay with them. All of those changes, right? The process of aging creates new ongoing need for new product, right? And as we established, that's very expensive. So all this adds up to a lot of stuckness, right? So where does that take you? Probably the most difficult point, to get across though is, in spite of all of that, we still think it's a soft regional market. Okay. The reason we do so,
What do you mean by soft?
not strong.
I know,
I didn't think it was
That's a good answer.
And now it wasn't being glib.
No, I know, but like, how would like define, comparatively speaking, I guess, soft, I mean, how do you put it?
It's easy and frequent and understandable to conflate need and demand. Okay? Because in contrast to the 50s and 60s, and all the way really to the mid-70s, when more people are moving in than moving out, right? So net plus. In contrast to then, where you've got what we would call genuine demand, today what you really have, independent of Micron, is more need generated by the evolution and the aging of existing households. And need is a bit different than demand.
So take that to mean as soft is kind of not as bad as it seems to be.
I don't think it's bad. I just think it's historically soft.
Okay.
And so historically soft would be shown here, right? So your value to income ratio is parked in the middle of the twos. It's 2.3, 2.4, right? Now, mind you, I had said earlier, right, averages are terrible things, right? So if you are in the Lakes region, if you're in Skinny Atlas, your ratios are 6, 7, and 8, right? If you're in the city of Syracuse, your ratios are 1.8, 1.9, 2, right? If you're in Salina, if you're in Liverpool, they're 2.1, 2.2. County-wide, they're 2.3, right? So that's what I mean by softness. When you are parked, when your value to income ratio is in that 2.5 space, right? Your present craziness accepted, right? You're generally not going to outpace inflation. And so we had a historic run of low inflation, right? For 2 decades, right? And so for the last 20 years, we've had very low inflation, very low interest rates, and yet the rate of appreciation for most homes across the county did not outpace inflation, which meant owning a home was a financial loser. Right? And so it's great to own the home for imputed value, but not for its financial value. Okay? And so now those are changing. And so I want to underscore that this is a transitioning market, a transitioning time. We expect that number to go up, right? You want that number to go up, right? As it goes up, what else comes down? Your affordability comes down, right? So as that number goes up and existing owners can cash out and get equity, the capacity for new buyers to enter the market becomes difficult. That number is also deceptive. That is a value to income ratio. It's a very important benchmark metric. That's different than a price to income ratio. Your price to income ratio is much higher. So to get into the market, if you aren't in the market today, right, you're in that 4s and 5s. It's just very expensive to get into the market. Right? But when we add up the value of all of real estate divided by all of the incomes, and divided by all the incomes, you're lower than we would want you to be. Okay.
Is that number include the city of Syracuse, or is that just?
That is the city of that is the city of Syracuse. If we discount for the city of Syracuse, it puts you at about 2.8. So somewhere south of Indianapolis, north of Erie.
Okay.
Okay. And so you're getting closer, right? Once you leave the city of Syracuse, it's actually not true. Liverpool's Salina, that's very challenged, area there. But broadly speaking, leaving the city of Syracuse, it's stronger and more stable. There's no question about that. And tighter. You'll see on the rental side, your city vacancy rates, are in the 5.6, right, on the rental side. They're 2.5 on the rental side of the county. Very tight rental market. So tight all the way around. Okay. I know we're super edged on time, so I'm going to try to just come to a quick close for you guys. So going into the future, I think what we tried to do was say, what if there if there was no micron, what's going on? So there's no cliff you're going to fall off, right? You're great really through 2040, but now's a good time to plan for late 30s and early 40s, right? Without a micron. But you're not in that position. Right? You're in this position where it's coming, right? You've got direct jobs, you've got multiplier jobs, it's catalytic. Consequently, if you look at Remy's projection, I believe for 60,000 people over the region, and you work backwards into what would be a defensible projection of your share of that. You take that 60, then the population, and then the household size, we end up with about net plus 24,000 households between now and 2040. So from a policy point of view and from an implementation of Plan Onondaga point of view, the way we would think about this is, all right, we've got 15 years, right, just as a good way to think about it. I got net plus 24, right? That's demand. And within the 195,000 households I've got all kinds of things going on. They're aging. Teenagers are going to, get older. People who are in their 20s are going to get into their 30s. Renters are going to want to become buyers. Seniors are going to want to look for senior house, move to one-story, homes, et cetera, et cetera. What you really want to be thinking about is for the next 15 years, what systems do we have to produce and receive, locate, right? 24 plus all the stuff kicked up by the 195 we've already got. Does that make sense? Right? We think, all things being equal, it'll shake out to about 17,000 in the county outside of the city, right? And about 7,300 in the city, provided, and I think this is a big proviso, if you look on the right, I circle number 3, provided the city proves capable of competing for 7, right? So I think whether or not they do, a good number is net plus 24,000 households, right? If you divide that by 15, 16 years, right, you have net plus, you've got to find a way to absorb 16 to 17, I think maybe 1,750 units a year on average, in addition to coping with the churn of the existing 195 you've got, right? So that's a lot. Right now, you're tending to average 600 multifamily, right? So if a year, which is great, if you think we're going to need to be getting to 1,600, 1,700, 1,800 units per year on average, and some percentage of that is rental, it's probably higher than 600. The rental game is probably going to have to get upped, 600 a year to maybe 900 a year. And then, you got to be asking yourself, where's the land for that? What are the regulations for that? What's the approvals process for that? Who are the developers for that? Who's the market for that? And that's the speculative part, right? So I'd probably just draw your attention to the fact that we did break the county up in the study from 34 jurisdictions, to 7, right? And for each of those, we've developed a dashboard about that gives some baselines as well as projections for how those sub-geographies might want to think about the next 15 years, both with and without micron, right? So how to think about it, what they're facing. And then where does that come going forward, right? I'll just read it left to right. It's not going to be easy. I like where you are, but it's not going to be easy. I think municipalities are rightly in the lead, right? The county is rightly in the position to help municipalities get into the end zone. That probably is going to be a combination of financial assistance and planning assistance. And fortunately, the county under Ryan has done, I think, an exceptional job of helping the municipalities on both those fronts. One on the OCHIP side, which we think has to become more robust, and then on the other, which is the planning assistance. I should probably pause there and hope that I've covered most of it as fast as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Got 9 minutes.
Any other questions or comments before?
Oh, wait, can I say one thing?
Sure, of
Yes,
course.
I'm sorry. This is in a market that we like to see, right? For every 70 owners out there, right, we should see a for sale sign, right? It's about 1.5%, it's about 1.5%, right? Any guesses as to where you are on that? On the last 6 weeks, I check on this daily for the last year or so, so it goes up and down, right? It's more homes on the market when it's spring than when it's hot in the summer, and then they come back up in September, October markets, right? But any guesses? You want to be about 1 in 70, right, for it to be accessible and good, right? Where are you guys? Any guesses? Right, that's it, right? You have one for every 250 outside of Syracuse. In Syracuse, one for every 204. Outside of Syracuse, one for every 256. Right? You're at like 0.3%. The inventory isn't there. Right? It's tight as a tick.
Wow.
Right?
Not good.
Anyway, so I didn't want to forget to make that point. I think that's valuable. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much. I will say just one quick thing, and this is just me talking personally. The legislature authorized this. We've been waiting for it very patiently. I wish that it had been presented to us before it was presented to the media, to this committee, but just making a statement for my own purposes. So anything else, any other questions, and we'll let them go. Chairman.
Thank you. Hello from the outer ring north.
Let me check my maps. We went through lots of these, yes.
He's Cicero.
Yes, okay, great, yeah.
Outer ring north.
Yeah.
So, few things, just comments if I could, Mr. Chairman. So, on page 59, summary of the housing market challenges in the mid-2020s, right? 1 through 6, I understand and agree with all of those. But number 5, suburban sprawl undermines the county's housing market. Just interested, the county's housing market or the city's housing market. I tried to read the further summary a little bit, but it was a challenge. Sorry, quickly.
Only to the extent that if you're not growing, the way to fuel that I'll call it a small g growth, right, is it's a regrettable turn of phrase, but it's market cannibalization, right? So it is creating new units on land and essentially borrowing from within when you don't have an inflow of folks. That's all.
And then, thank you for your work. I'm sorry I didn't start with that. Thank you for your work, and thank you for this, what looks like a great report. This report is filled with a lot of change, right? We see lots of change and changing numbers. On page 15, though, is the only place that I see that actually says, and this is for Mr. Waffner, too. I was going to say something about this, but it happened to be there. Towns, villages, and the city of Syracuse control planning, land use, and zoning at the local level where policy and regulatory changes will be necessary. And so I appreciate that. That's the way that I feel. To Troy, I would say, yes, that's the job, is to bring and encourage change. We all need change, and this is, of course, what's been talked about and discussed with me and other folks in the past several weeks. is that Central New York and our area, Onondaga County, is going through a great change, and we're here to lead, and we have constituents that we answer to. And of course, Central New York, and humans necessarily do not like change. So, this is an interesting time, and it is exciting, but there is the idea of change.
If I could just respond to that real quick. Happened to be at a Cicero Comprehensive Plan meeting last night, and the resistance to change, I'm not seeing it. I'm seeing a lot of openness to change and growth and embracing some of these new ideas. In our listening sessions, it was actually extremely refreshing to see people understand this stuff already. They understand what's going on. We've seen more mixed-use development than we've ever seen. We've seen more places talking about quality of place, quality of development, walkability, embracing the town center, strong centers ideas in ways that we've never heard before from municipalities and their role in doing so. And so, yeah, the work we're doing, Cicero is just a microcosm of some of the work we're doing across the county that is actually really encouraging.
Maggie, I think you're right, but I think what we're going to find too is that it's going to be developers who have to understand this and be open to the kind of development that we want here, because it's probably going to be a little bit more costly, and it's changing the game for them. They're not used to it. So even though the communities right now seem to be open to it, when they make the decisions, they're going to have to be tough about, developers coming in with plans that they want and demanding the changes they need.
Situation is we've allowed sort of mediocre quality of products. So people look at that mediocre quality and say, I don't want more of that. We're saying you need to build high quality development in our communities. And we need to, we can do better. We can ask for more. And that's the thing that's going to take away that fear from folks if we do it right. We're not talking about tons of 300, 500, 800 unit apartment buildings everywhere. We want to introduce new for sale options like that missing middle housing that we talk about in Plan Onondaga. We want infill, smaller development, smaller multifamily units that aren't quite so terrifying to folks. They fit in within the existing context of communities. So there's lots of different ways that we can try. It's not just we need a ton of big apartment complexes. I just want to make that clear to this group. We're looking at condominiums, townhouses, for sale options, for rent options, just in new ways that we haven't really thought of before. And that's going to be a challenge to get that stuff into local zoning ordinances, because that's the stuff that's not in there right now.
I'm sorry, because I know you guys have, but I got a question. So you said infill, and the state obviously did some things about infill properties. And I think probably some of the intent behind that was to say, okay, well, if developers aren't in private developers, right, want to put forth private, and it costs more to build, right? So they're always going to want a return on their investment.
They want as much density as they can get.
Committee in town got us for 4 years, and everybody's coming. They want to stay. They want to maximize the return on their investment. Obviously, they're in the business of making money. They're not in the business of breaking even. But do you think, to a certain extent, that if they do say, okay, we're going to put there's this piece of state property, we're going to do that, we can get that. Do you think that will open up a competitive marketplace, whereas other privates like, okay, well, I got to get in the game here, because if the state's going to start doing all this and incentivize that, then we're going to get left behind. And second point is, we talk about senior, like here's an example, right? So my father is, I think, 76, 77 years old. He owns his own home, right? It's paid for, but he would go, I'll go to a new home, but he's not going to go because then he either doesn't, or he has to take out a mortgage. And he's not going to take out a mortgage at the interest rates, and then he has to pay a homeowner association. I'm not going to leave the house. So what there, I know that you can't, I guess go back to the first question is, do you think that would do something what the state is trying to do?
I don't have enough information to comment on the state, but I do think I can say something in response to the important issue you put on the table, right? No developers in the business, okay, to not make money, okay? And the essential nature of development is risk management. Right? So the risk has to be paid for. Right? And in order to there's no getting around the fact that between the lines in Plan Onondaga, right, is the insistence on good, will be manifest as an insistence on quality. And quality has costs, right? Quality of location, quality construction, quality development, right? Quality management, all of that has costs. To actually respond to the net demand that we anticipate you having and check the box of quality, costs are going to go up, right? Which means, right, that real creativity on the gap financing side is imperative, right? So part of implementing Plan Onondaga on the housing front is to raise the capital, to close the gap, to be sure that the development community comes to the table, right, and produces the volume and the quality that you need.
Good challenge.
Yeah, not easy.
Yep. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck at the zoo. Enjoy.
Megan, I'll try.
All right. Let's keep moving along to 2A, community development.
Now we get to the exciting stuff.
Yeah, there we go.
Bureaucracy stuff's out of the way. Good morning. Still morning, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I have 2 items to talk about today. The first one is our annual entitlement grants from Housing and Urban Development. Just a reminder, the entitlement grants are money that we get every year based on a bunch of different formulas that they use. So that we don't compete for this money, we just get an award based on certain factors in our county. And every year we bring the steering committee together when we get the award, and we decide, we reach out to the municipalities, they apply for projects, and then we get the steering committee together and we approve budget, we approve projects, and then we come over here to ask you to support that. So the first would be, there's 3 different categories of entitlement grants that we get. We get the Community Development Block Grant, and as you can see, that was fairly flat. We get the Home Grant, which was down 13%, and then we get an Emergency Solutions Grant, which helps homeless programs, and that was up 1.7%. So overall, we were pretty flat at like 3.1% decrease. So nothing really changed there. And we received a lot of great applications this year. And by doing a little maneuvering, we were able to fund everyone who applied, with the exception of the Cornell Cooperative Extension application for the Community Forest Program. We haven't funded them for, this will be the 3rd year, and the main reason is because we were always chasing them to spend their money. And the money is very valuable, and as you can see, it's flat and demand's going up. And so to give money to something that doesn't seem to be a priority to the agency we're giving it to doesn't make a lot of sense. So as a matter of fact, they just this year spent money that they got 3 years ago, finally spent it. So so they were the only ones who did not receive funding for the upcoming year. And then the Emergency Solutions Grants, we funded mostly everybody who applied. They always apply for more money than we have. It's a small pot of money, so we try and spread it around. And the way that we were able to make it work was, you'll see on the left under housing rehabilitation, we were able to lower that from the year before because part of that money for housing rehab we used towards our lead program. And because of the investments that Ryan has made and you all have approved in lead, we were able to use some of the county funds to do that work. So we were able to lower that down so that we could then fund the municipalities more than we would have been able to. So that was the main one. And then the other one is you see the town of Clay gets their own allocation because they're considered an urban county. So they for the last 3 years have been getting their own allocation. They used to just take a chunk of it, and they've been taking all of it, as they should. And so they have a higher amount to spend every year, and a couple of the projects that they had, they were a little behind on. And if you get behind, HUD doesn't like that. You can only have 1.5 times your allocation at a certain point in the calendar year. And so Clay was gonna be running behind. So the supervisor of the board agreed to allow us to use a portion of their funds this year to supplement another county project. So they worked well with us on that. So that was how it all shook out.
You do not want to get on the federal list of slow spenders.
No, because then they take it back.
And they pull it back, right, no, exactly.
Yeah. Well, they can.
But yeah, questions?
I just want to say, thank you to you and your staff. I know this is not an easy program. I've been on all 3 sides now.
Yeah.
Requesting, steering committee, and the county side. This is a great program, and I appreciate everything you're doing to continue to keep these projects moving, because they do change communities and they do help. So I will move the motion.
Okay. We have a motion, second.
So just a quick, so the community development, you said everyone who applied was funded with the additional funds. That's reflective in the capital projects. correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, exactly.
That's good.
Just before we vote, there's been a lot of discussion about, we have a wonderful first buyer home program, first home buyer program, whatever. Somebody buying a home for the first time.
Low income first time.
Yeah, let's do that. And traditionally, we have been able to take properties off of our, the county's auction, give them to the housing development fund company or your department, and make these houses beautiful, and then sell them at a reduced cost to first-time home buyers, which is based on income, et cetera, et cetera. I know that's kind of in flux right now. Any updates on with the new rules from the state, federal government, and now that law that we just passed at the county last month? How we can keep this really good program going?
We're not sure yet. Law is still kind of analyzing how that's all going to work, because the situation, so the house comes to the fund company for $1 when we take it off the tax auction, and technically we took it before it got auctioned. And then we rehab it and usually end up putting, $170,000 or $80,000 into a home to rehab it. And, the ruling was that if there's compensation exceeding the amount of back taxes a person owed, that they have to get that portion back. And so we're not sure how that affects the homes that we take off the auction, because you sell them to us for $1 and then we waive the $1, but then that's not anywhere near the market value of the house. And so we're not sure if the fund company is going to have to put money into the fund to meet the market value that is determined with the way that it's set up in the county now, where it'll go through the courts and all that. So we're having ongoing discussions with law about trying to figure out how it's going to
If you
happen.
could keep us in the loop on that,
Yes.
I'd appreciate it. It's a really good program.
Mhm.
And so, all right, we have a motion and a second on the table for 2A. All in favor? Aye. Nays, abstentions, motion's carried. Thank you. B.
Okay, B. So now B is, it's great to follow the housing study, because it kind of makes a lot of the points of what we're trying to do here with the hotel initiative program. We're seeing the same thing. To Dave's point, one of the houses, we just rehabbed the house on 323 Charles Ave in Solvay, and it appraised for $215,000. And so we're seeing this huge, we did one out in Bayberry that appraised for $260,000. So, we're seeing this influx as well. And so last year and a half ago, the legislature approved the county executive's OCHIP proposal, and it's been tremendously successful. Developers are loving it. It's really helping them close gaps. When Charles first came to meet and I had my first one-on-one with him, I told him about the program, and he was blown away. He said, I've never seen a municipality do this, and it's so smart, because you're helping close gaps on projects that are going to benefit the community. You're not helping to benefit, plowing through a field, running a bunch of sewer lines and building 10 homes that are going to go for $600,000. That's not the goal. And so he does these studies all over the country, and he was really impressed by it. And so now the county executive is looking to try and do it on the hotel front, because we're also facing a shortage on hotel rooms, just like we're facing a shortage in housing. So the way that this program, a little background first that I got from Danny Likas here from Visit Syracuse. So tourism and convention, as you all know, that business is a key part of the economy of Onondaga County. The room nights generate ROT and sales tax. 1 in 11 workers in this region are employed by the hospitality industry. And our region's tourism is a $1 billion industry generating $45 million in local taxes. Micron coming, they estimate that they're going to generate 40,000 room nights a year. To add on to the 2 million that are already generated per year. And we already have a shortage before that happens. And then we have the Sheraton becoming a dorm. We have the Crown Plaza becoming apartments. Now we have 2 big hotels coming offline. So what's being proposed for the hotel initiative is to use $4 million in excess room occupancy tax to help developers close gaps in funding new hotel projects. The numbers that Charles showed you for what developers are facing even just 4 years ago to now is the same thing happening with people trying to do hotels. So this will go towards new construction or room expansion of an existing hotel. And there will be a review team formed, just like there was with OCHIP. This review team will be Dave Knapp as the chair of Planning and Economic Development, myself, a representative from the County Executive's Office, a representative from Center State, a representative from ASM Global, and a representative from Visit Syracuse. The committee will meet with the developers to review the documents, the project scope, the financing, and what their funding difficulties are. And then after that, the committee will then determine the amount of money to grant to a project. The range will be from anywhere to $50,000 to $750,000. And the items, we're in the formulation stage of the items that will be used to determine the funding, but they will be things like the capital expenditure, how much money they're spending on the project, how big it is, the number of rooms that it'll bring online, the timeline, the sooner the better, because we already have a shortage and it's hurting our convention business, how many jobs it will create, and the significance it will be to the region. So those are the items that we're on the list right now, what we'll use in evaluating a project to determine how much funding they get. So that's basically the program. It's OCHIP for hotels, and as needed as it was for housing. So.
I'd just like to say that this is an absolute necessity. This isn't even, it's a no-brainer. It's a great plan, and we need this for the growth of our county. So with that, I'd like to make a motion.
All right, we have a motion. We'll continue the discussion. Is there a second? Okay, Chris.
So, yeah, discussion, so I don't disagree, I think, but again, necessity, but, I mean, $4 million, it's not $4 million, is, before I vote on giving $4 million. So we have a team, just like I was talking, right, so, and then 50 to
750,000.
So that would go to a developer, but before, can I just back up, and I know Daniel probably didn't answer, so how many hotel rooms are coming offline? So what is the percentage of how many we have? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but.
8,700 rooms in the county. We're going to lose about, the Genesee grant is going to cut in half, so we're going to lose about 7% of our inventory on those 3 projects.
How many do we have now?
Roughly 8,700.
700.
8,700, you're going to lose about 6 to 7% of that. And one thing that's not noted, you couldn't have picked the 3 worst ones to take offline because that's your convention center, hotels, and you're looking at, $16 to $20 million in economic loss if we're not able to house those people. So when we say necessity, it's magnified in the convention center district, which is a county facility as well.
So, right, so 87, we lose 7% of that, best case scenario, which then kind of goes in the next issue of economic development, which it's your ability to get convention, which we all know people come in and then they eat shop, go, whatever. We wanna have the bowlers come in, right? We can't do it without that. There's a lot of inhibits.
Yeah, in fact, you know, we have a meeting with the bowlers coming up, and we're ready to bid on 2030, 2031. With the loss of these hotels, we're idle right now, so the chance of us securing something that has a $75 million economic impact is in jeopardy. But if we show some good faith efforts to inventory situation, I do believe conversation will be a more positive route.
So if you're, so you're gonna give grant funding out, and tell me again what the grant funding is for, like what would be, so if I'm,
It's to help deal with funding gaps that they're experiencing because of the cost of everything going up.
Yeah, so I look at the Holiday Inn out there in Electronics Parkway. Right, yeah, Electronics Parkway. Huge facility. I've been told that there's been some developers that have come in and wanted to take it over, but they're just this much short of making the numbers work. And so this is what I see as something that we could do to, close that gap and get that big facility, back in play.
Yeah, that hotel, I mean, specifically, 40,000 square feet of meeting space. It was good for certain price points. That there was a lot of meetings, conventions. There were people that did not maybe want to be in a city center. That particular property, there's definitely a gap for a developer because of the amount of money it's going to take to renovate that building. You've got the original kitchen there. Their HVA system is what they call a single pipe system, which was created in the 60s. So there's a really big cost to really retrofit that and make that a modern hotel. But the sheer volume of space and rooms there is very desirable considering its proximity to Micron as well.
Yeah, and the throughway down there.
So the funding will either help someone close the gap or get them closer to closing the gap that's making the project stall or making it not viable, which is what we're seeing on the OCHIP side. So a number of the developers, we give them a letter saying that they've been awarded this money, because we'll do the same thing we did with the OCHIP, where we're sort of the last money in because it's county money. We don't just decide and go, okay, here you go, here's your $250,000, let us know when it's done. We wait to give them a letter telling them the money's there, but we need to feel comfortable it's gonna be completely done, it's gonna be completed as planned before we give you that money. But so some of the developers, we've given them a letter, and that's helped them go get, if it's closed the gap close enough, it's helped them get that additional funding to make the project go forward.
so if I'm a private equity group, and I'm saying I'm gonna build a hotel. I'm gonna build a hotel in downtown Syracuse, there's a need, I can get $750,000 in a subsidy to do that, whether it's gonna be closing cost, navigation, or addition, because I'm probably gonna be going to IDA, I'm probably going outside, right, to get another tax to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Which is, listen, we have a need in the project. And then you'll decide whether or not that project is feasible, or whether it's doable, or if I have a good project, if I'm coming back, do I really need $750,000, do I really need $750,000, right? And then you will decide on that, and then that grant.
The committee will decide.
Committee will decide.
The committee will meet with the developer. They will make their pitch of what they're trying to do and how much they'd like. And then we'll have rating factors, like I said, 4 or 5 different factors so far of where the project fits. And then the committee will decide how much funding that they feel is worth, the project is worth.
Can I add one point to this?
Yeah.
The fact that there's a surplus in that bed tax fund, which is where this money's coming from, not on local taxpayers, shows how hot this market is. 3 straight years exceeding the $1 billion mark. I'd hate to lose the momentum because of our loss of inventory. So it's nice when things are self-sustaining, creating revenue to do things like this.
Before we lost the 2 hotels and 1 cut back to half capacity, we were already needing hotel rooms. So it's just solve the wound.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm again with the concept. Okay. I think we're a little short on details when we spend this much taxpayer dollars, but at the same time, to Danny's point, which is a good one, right? right? So we have a surplus in that. So if we have a surplus in that line item or in that account, can we then reapportion that to a different place to incentivize hotels? So
You know, and we've always looked at that money as, you know, we're not putting that in our general fund to spend on roads or parks or whatever. This money is there to be reinvested to create more than tourism, more, you know, more business activity. So
I think the concept behind how we reapportion the route has been something we've been talking about for at least for 13 years now.
Mark, you had a question?
I do think this initiative is a good idea and a good program. My question is more to Dan, you live this day in and day out. I've talked to 2 major hotel owners in the Syracuse area. They're talking about gaps of 6, 7, and projects that are ready flags in the city of Syracuse. They're talking $6-7 million gaps. The other one has 27 hotels in the Syracuse and the New York area who says it's $4.5 million for the one he wants to do. So I sat there and said, all right, I'm going to drive through Carrier Circle, which is the largest cluster of hotels. There was 4 hotels completely in need of renovation. So I'm hoping that will solve that issue. But for new construction, which I know you need, I think we got to have a plan B, because this is not, this $4 million is not even wouldn't even affect one brand new hotel to make sure. Because the developer I talked to said building costs went double what the last hotel they made.
Our
Over
earlier conversation, it's more for housing, it's the same materials you're using.
So I applaud the administration. I think this is great, but I think we got to step back and look at Plan B, because if we want, I think you should focus all your efforts on existing infrastructure that's not at the standards, and then, or one that can be built that the gap financing works. But then, what is our next plan to look at? You know, because I look at the Everson garage one, just doing the math. 4 million, not even close. Not even close.
Well, that's what we see on the OCHIP side. You know, I mean, the majority of projects are being done in existing buildings. There's not, you know, we've given out very few grants. We've given out $5.3 million so far for 1,300 units, and very small percentage are starting from the ground up. You know, it's people like Steve Skinner doing the Taft over on across from the church, and you know, people like that are getting these old buildings and rehabbing them, which is what we want.
I'm extremely pleased with what we're doing. I'm saying to you, let's come up with let's think outside the box now. Maybe there's another plan that can be brought up during budget time.
And we'll see what the response is. You know, I mean, like with the OCHIP, when we announced that, you know, we got an initial slew of applications in, got a few more in a couple months later, and then we came back and put some more money in, so we'll have a base. And, you know, based on what we see from the experience of getting this out there and what developers come with, you know, if there's something is showing a trend, then we'll figure out a way to deal with it and come back and ask again.
Appreciate it. Thank you for that.
And this is exclusively for new hotels.
No, it can be for adding. You can add on. It could be for adding rooms or building new.
Or renovating. Yeah.
Or renovating if it adds rooms. It has to add rooms.
Okay.
Yeah. No matter, you have to be adding rooms to get any of this money. You can't just like fix it up.
But I guess that was my point. Like,
Yes.
listen, if I think again, I think $4 million, whether it's, we're not taxing for it, it's fine. Still, in my estimate, it's still $4 million. $4 million of the taxpayers' dollars. I think that there's still a lot of questions, but I think that was one you have to add rooms, because I don't think we should be spending any money on that. We're not going to just fix somebody's hotel up because they want something.
The entire initiative is to get more rooms online.
Adding more stop. We're proposing the 7% gap. But if you think about it, we're really exceeding. We're just trying to close the 7% gap. That's without any new growth, right? We're just.
Okay. Anything else?
Okay.
I just see passing notes. I didn't know if there's something you wanted to share with.
We're doing our lunch order.
Oh, okay. All right. Any other? We have a motion and a second on the table. Any other comments? We good? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Nays, abstentions?
Abstain.
One abstention. Motion's carried. All right, that concludes our agenda. It was a good one today. I appreciate everybody's attention and good, very, very good discussion. We're adjourned.